It's Down to Business with Jack Miller. Forget what they teach you in school. This is real life, not Wall Street, but Main Street. A real show on what's really involved with starting and running a business with all the ups and downs. Our guests will answer your questions and provide you with valuable information. Stay tuned and join in the conversation.
I want to introduce our guest now. Wanda, could you patch Ron in?
He's been here all along.
Ron, how are you?
Very good. Good day to you. Thank you.
Good day to you. First, I want to introduce you to the audience. On the phone, ladies and gentlemen, we have Ron Fieldstone, who is an attorney at Aaronstein and Lair in Miami. Ron's resume, Ron, I hope I'm not making you blush, is literally 4 or 5 pages long of unbelievably terrific accomplishments. And I consider it a pleasure, and I'm really lucky to be able to have you on the show today. I have a ton of questions for you on your area of expertise, which is, you have a lot of areas, corporate and securities law and taxation, but we're going to focus today on EB-5 because I'm fascinated by it, and I think a lot of people should be, especially in the real estate world. So, Ron, thank you again for taking the time. I know how busy you are to be on the show.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you, Jack.
My pleasure. Ron, let me jump right into it. And, you know, I'm free-flowing. I joke around, so I hope I just override me anytime. Why don't you start off by telling the audience, give them a little background. What is EB-5? Let's start with that, and then we can build from there.
I think it's good for people that aren't familiar with it. They may have heard about it. It's received a lot of press lately in New York Times, Wall Street Journal, publications all over the country, and even legislation. It was featured on a recent ABC show on abuses in the immigration program. EB-5 stands for Employment Base 5, which is what it means. It's an employment-based program which other countries in the world have, where basically a foreigner can buy citizenship, in a nutshell. And what does that mean? It means if you invest money in this country and you create jobs, in particular 10 jobs per applicant, then you get to migrate to this country. You have a green card, and then after a period of time, actually become a citizen. For those that may not know, once you are a resident in the country for 5 years, you're entitled to citizenship. Under the EB-5 program, you get what's called a temporary residency, and I'll explain that. In other words, when you enter the country under the EB-5 program, you have to do 2 things. You have to invest a certain minimum amount of money. It's either $500,000 for most programs or $1 million for programs that don't have a certain exemption, which I'll get into. And you invest that money. It could be a loan. It could be a syndicate where you invest your money with a syndicate where they make loans to projects or they invest in projects. The whole purpose of the program is job creation. So you have to prove that the money you invest creates jobs over a period of at least 2 years, and each petitioner, applicant, must create 10 direct or indirect jobs. Now, I think everybody realizes what a direct job is. If you fund a restaurant, that's easy. All the employees of the restaurant are direct employees. So if you fund a brand new restaurant, those 10 employees are count towards the immigration requirement. If you build a skyscraper in New York, which right now is going on, there's a lot of EB-5 projects going on around the country, but some huge ones. The best example would be the Barclays Center, where the professional basketball team plays, is an EB-5 project. There's an example of one that people would be aware of. Many other projects of that size, but there's multi-$100 million projects today being funded all over the country with EB-5 capital. So if you create direct and indirect jobs under the program, you also qualify to meet the immigration requirements. The other aspect is you must have your money at risk for 2 years, and then you file your petition to have your conditional residency lifted. So the first petition is called an I-526 petition, which is filed when you make your first investment, and then the way it works is you wait for approval from the government. Right now the government's taking 14.2 months on average to review EB-526 petitions. Very long time. It's kind of backlogging the program, but the government is understaffed, and it's been difficult. Once you get your petition approval, Then you have to go to the U.S. consulate in your country of nationality and get a visa. You can wait 6 months easily in some countries to get a visa appointment. Once you get your visa appointment and the visa's issued, then you can immediately enter the United States and have your passport stamped as a temporary permanent residence. Now, what do I mean by temporary? Temporary means you have to prove to the government after a period of 2 years of being in the country that you have met two conditions. You've created the jobs, which is 10 direct or indirect jobs, and you've been at risk in your money capital for the entire 2 years. In other words, you're not allowed to be repaid your capital investment until you get your 829 approval, which could take another year, because the wait on 829s is about 8 months. The whole process really today takes over 5 years. It's a very slow process because of the time delay. But you can enter the country with a temporary green card in probably close to 2 years. Now, Jack, you ever seen the movie Green Card? I think we talked about that.
Yep. Ron, you know what? Before we get into this, because I have to unfortunately take a break. I have Wanda has a gun to my head here. Actually, I shouldn't say that. She has a lollipop and it's kindly encouraging. But when we get back, so we understand that, I think the listener understands this is a way for foreign nationals to get in the country, get citizenship through investment in the country. I want to talk about the sponsors and the real estate developers, what's in it for them, and why this is, I think it's like it feels like it's the way to raise capital now. So just bear with us for a couple minutes. We've got to get a couple commercials in, then we'll be back. Thanks, Ron. And thanks, audience. Stay tuned. We will be back in, I think, about 2 minutes. Thank you.
Don't turn that dial. We'll be right back.
Does your company need financing to help with cash flow? Geld Financial Corporation has been in business since 1989, knows the financing that businesses need to succeed in today's competitive environment. Geld offers a wide array of programs such as accounts receivable, factoring, asset-based lines of credit, commercial real estate purchase and refinance financing, and bridge loans. Call us right now at 561-221-0900 to learn if you qualify. Geld Financial understands that every business is in a unique situation which requires a unique solution. We pride ourselves in thinking outside the box to secure even the most difficult financing. Call us right now at 561-221-0900 or visit us at geltfinancial.com. That's geltfinancial.com.
Are you tired of dealing with invasive and unreliable banks or brokers who charge large amounts of upfront fees and never deliver on their promises? Geld Financial Corporation, in business since 1989, offers a stated income mortgage loan for non-owner occupied residential and commercial real estate investors. For purchases, refinances, and yes, cash out refinances, call Geld Financial at 561-221-0900. That's 561-221-0900. Our stated income loan program does not require tax returns. Due to the light documentation, we can offer quick closings and approvals usually within 1 day. This program is a 30-year term with no balloon payment, with loans amounts from $100,000 all the way up to $5 million. Call Gelt at 561-221-0900 or visit us at geltfinancial.com.
Did you invest in a non-liquid real estate partnership? Do you want and need liquidity? There's finally an answer. Quick Liquidity is a direct buyer of real estate minority interest and tenants in common investments across the country. To find out if we would buy your non-liquid investment, call us at 561-221-0881 or visit us at quickliquidity.com. That's quickliquidity.com.
Hi, this is Jim Freed. Join me for Freed on Business every Thursday here on 880 AM The Biz. Our show is where South Florida's business community comes together to exchange ideas on health and wellness, business tips, the news of the day, and things you can use to help improve your business's profitability on a daily basis. Join me as we move the show to 6 to 7 on Thursdays here on 880 AM The Biz for Freed on Business, brought to you by UHealth and Warren Henry Automotive.
Take good care.
Welcome back to It's Down to Business with Jack Miller.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for staying tuned. And remember, the dial-in number is 305 541-2350. Ron, thanks for being there. Can I jump in and ask you a bunch of questions?
Sure, please do.
So is this specifically for new construction, or can it be for a non-new construction project?
Yeah, very good question. You have to create jobs. So by definition, if you buy an existing building, you're not creating any jobs because you're not employing anybody. So this is not an investment program. This is not an investment program. It's a job creation program through an investment. So the way you create jobs is building things, because construction jobs, both direct and indirect construction jobs, generate a lot of jobs. And also, if you give an example, let's say you assume you build a hotel, well, you're getting two sets of jobs. You have construction jobs to build the building, and then you have operation jobs because you're running a hotel, where if you didn't build the building, you wouldn't be able to employ the people to run the hotel. So you get two sets of jobs. So that's a typical model of an EB-5 program. If you buy an existing hotel, all you've done is make an investment. You've not created any jobs because the jobs already existed. So this is a new job creation program. Now, if you buy in the reverse end, if you buy a building that's empty, that needs to be renovated and upgraded, and you see that quite a bit around the country, the cost of construction to renovate the building and the jobs you create to operate the new business in the building, that will count because you've created new jobs.
So you can do what I call value-add deals here.
Yes, exactly. Or renovation, which is very common. You'll see a lot of historic buildings around the country being renovated for a totally different use, and you get both construction and operation jobs as a result of that.
Gotcha. Now, I know you can go big in literally the hundreds of millions, or and bigger. But what's the small size of this? In other words, if someone's doing a $5-10 million shopping center or an apartment building, is that too small for EB-5?
No, I mean there technically is no limit of the smallest EB-5 deal you can do is $500,000, which is a minimum investment for one investor. So I've seen people we've seen foreigners, especially living in Miami, where you have a significant foreign dominance in this society. They come to this country, or they come to Miami or South Florida, and they invest in their own businesses, and then they realize, I want to become an immigrant, and they use their own investment in their own business to migrate. So you don't have to invest in somebody else's business, you can invest in your own. In that situation, the minimum investment typically is $500,000, and if they can show they created 10 jobs by making that investment, they can apply for their own green card for their own business. So there really is no minimum, but generally, most of the EB-5 capital is raised. First of all, I'll note, no surprise, 85% of EB-5 capital last year came from mainland China, for reasons which we can go into. And that money was pooled money that was effectively done in a new entity which would be formed, where the investor capital would be pooled with other investors. That money would be consolidated and loaned to a project. And as you said, some of these are mega projects, hundreds of millions of dollars of EB-5 capital going into the economy, which is obviously a positive, developing projects that may have difficulty being developed otherwise, and creating jobs and providing favorable financing compared to the alternative. So really, that's kind of the gist of the program.
So the developer, let's focus on. I want to jump into how you raise the money. The developer here doesn't have to go to China and raise the money. They work through what, agents?
That's correct. That's correct. The developer will typically either work through a regional center, which are licensed establishments in the United States that are authorized to sponsor EB-5 programs. So typically a developer that wants to develop a project, or when I say a developer, it doesn't have to be real estate. If you have a manufacturing business and you want to develop a new plant in your area, or if you want to do a restaurant or a hospital or assisted living or healthcare or schools are very popular. It's not just building a building, it's creating an operating business as well. If you want to undertake that, you could go directly to a regional center, and the regional center will then assist you in accessing foreign capital, or you directly, especially in the large projects, may go directly to the foreign capital to raise the money. Now, if you go to China, which is, again, 85% of the capital, you traditionally work through what we call migration agents, which are similar to investment bankers in this country, but geared for the EB-5 industry. So these are fairly experienced establishments that not only find you EB-5 investors to invest the money in the project that creates jobs, but that EB-5, that agents in China in particular, they're called migration agents, actually help the family migrate to the United States. When I mean help the family, they help their children get into schools, they pick colleges, they help the family get homes, they set up insurance, health care, whatever the family needs to successfully migrate to this country. So that's a very different service than we would see in the United States, where you don't really see people helping Americans migrate to foreign countries.
Gotcha. What kind of leverage? I want to talk about the cost of funds, and let's talk about the cost of funds now, because I read some of your stuff. Why don't we address, or if you could address, what the cost of funds is in terms of what they pay the investors, and then the all-in cost of funds to the investor?
Yeah, very good question. Well, obviously the program's been very successful as of recent because of two reasons. One is, after the recession took place 5-6 years ago, the money dried up and it was hard to get money. And as a result of that, EB-5 capital became very important because banks weren't lending money, or they were lending money at a very small amount, and the EB-5 capital was coming in and supplementing the domestic money and providing money to projects that would otherwise have trouble getting financing, or providing secondary financing, meaning you have a senior loan, EB-5 would come in as a secondary loan behind the senior loan and enable a developer with much less capital to develop their project. The rates here's the interesting part. The foreign investor's motivation generally is not to make a profit. So this is kind of bizarre, because it's hard to imagine an investment where somebody invests their money without the expectation of really making money. The expectation of the foreign investor is to get their green card, which is the number one priority, and that's their trade-off for the rate of return. So they want to invest in a project that they feel is going to earn them the path to citizenship, and at the end of the day, return their capital. So in the typical market today, especially in China, the average investor is getting about 0.5% a year payment on their investment. So for a $500,000 investment, they're making about $2,500 a year. That's what they're making, which is nominal. The rest of the money, the rest of the cost, which could be 4%, the rest of that cost is going to the migration agents, who are actually collecting that interest as their fees for bringing investors into the program. So in a model I just gave you, let's take Mr. Chang. Mr. Chang is bringing his family from China to the United States. He invests $500,000. Just for the record, that petition by Mr. Chang not only includes Mr. Chang, but includes his spouse and all of his children at the time he makes the application, who are under 21 years age. So basically, you have a program that can migrate an entire family for a $500,000 investment. So it's not just one person.
Oh, really? So
the whole family is included in the petition.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I actually thought it was $500,000 or $1 million per person.
No, it's per family.
Oh, wow.
That's why the program's so popular.
Yeah.
So now Mr. Chang is very satisfied to make a very small return on his money and be able to migrate his family to the United States with the expectation he's going to get his green card and get his money back. So the agents in China are making the additional interest. So at the end of the day, I give a range to clients of 4 to 6% all in. I call it all in, is a typical cost of capital in Chinese markets. It could be less. It could be 3%. It could be 7%. But the majority of the deals, the range is typically 4 to 6.
Gotcha. So
and basically, if you compare that to U.S. source financing on a mezzanine or second mortgage, it's much less, because mezzanine financing or second mortgage financing in the United States on large projects today typically runs, 12 to 15%. So you're still borrowing at a rate that's substantially less than you would pay typically in the United States for a second position.
Restrictions on this is much less than a conventional source or a mezz equity deal. The covenants and things of that nature on an EB-5 are much...
That's correct. They're usually non-recourse.
Yeah.
And the covenants are much more generating jobs and making sure the project is protected. but not the the strenuous regulations that would be undertaken by a bank or a financial institution in our country that would I generally have a lot more requirements. Correct.
What about leverage? What is the EB-5 going up to in terms of financing?
Yeah, very good question. Typically, that depends on the developer. Good question. It used to be in the olden days, I'd say 5-6 years ago, when there weren't many EB-5 projects in the marketplace, the word around the street was you can borrow all your money, virtually 100%. The investors will give you all your money. You have to invest virtually nothing at a very low rate, and that was obviously very attractive but very limited. Since the program is becoming much more vital, the supply of projects is greater than the demand. The supply of projects is more than the money availability. So what you have now is excess projects. So all of a sudden, the agents have become much more
little pickier,
demanding as to what they're going to make, and as a result, and demanding as to the quality of the projects. So in answer to your first question, usually we recommend to developers that they have at least 20 to 25% skin in the game or equity in the project. So if we take a project of $10 million, let's take a small project, that would be a small project, $10 million, the developer would typically have to have $2 or $2.5 million invested. Let's assume the developer gets a first mortgage of $5 million, which is very easy to get a 50% mortgage. Then the EB-5 would come in as a second position for the difference of $2.5 or $3 million.
Got it. Ron,
at that rate, at 4 or 5%, that's a very good rate for a secondary finance.
That's a great deal. Ron, I got a hard break. We got a traffic report.
Sure.
I shouldn't even have to take it because there's always a lot of traffic in Miami. But stay with us another session. We'll be right back in a few minutes, folks. Thank you.
Don't turn that dial. We'll be right back.
And now, 880 The Biz traffic.
Earlier action on the eastbound Dolphin near the 95 ramps is now over on the shoulder. We're still heavy from around the mall area going all the way past Miami International towards this scene. 95 south, a lot of volume coming down towards the Golden Glades. Local lanes will be heavy after that. Some Pass Express lanes moving fine. Earlier stalled by the 112 Airport Expressway is over to the side. Heavier on the Julia Tuttle Causeway going eastbound towards Miami Beach. Northbound Palmetto still crawling from the Bird Road up to the Dolphin. And action on the off-ramp for Northwest 25th Street. For more traffic, follow us on Twitter at Total Traffic MIA.
This is the Wall Street Business Network.
South Florida's only business radio station, 880 AM, The Biz.
That's it.
Welcome back to It's Down to Business with Jack Miller.
Hey, thanks for staying with us. Ron, you there?
Here we go.
Hey, Ron, thanks. Did we lose Ron?
We'll try and get him back.
Okay, I have so many questions for this guy, but we'll get him back in a few minutes. But it seems to me one of the things that I was thinking about when Ron was talking was that other people in other countries are paying to come to this country. It's something that I think we as Americans take for granted way too much. And it just strikes me, and as Ron were talking about it, that we really, I know we complain about our politics and our government, and really we complain about everything. But really, we really do live in a place where everyone wants to come to. So maybe we take ourselves for granted here a little bit too much. When Ron gets back, and this guy is just full of knowledge, I want to have him give out his contact information as well. He's back. Hey, Ron, thank you very much. I apologize for the little
problem. It's okay.
I have so many questions. I want to. So let me keep jumping in because I literally have tons of questions for you, and time's running short. It seems there's so many advantages to this. It's just unbelievable. Talk to me about locations. You know, I keep reading or the word on the street, which doesn't mean anything, that the port cities, you know, or the metropolis, the New Yorks, the Miamis, the San Franciscos, which isn't a port city. But are deals being done in Middle America on this?
Yeah. That's again another very good industry question. It's again, given the fact that this is I call it a China-centric program right now. Not that it's not vital in other countries, but China accounting for 85% of EB-5 capital. Just for the record, the number 2 country in the world is South Korea. They account for 2% of EB-5 capital. To give you an idea who numbered. So you realize there's no other country really in the world providing many investors in China. And basically, the Chinese by the way, they read a lot. They're very intelligent. They're very thorough. They actually do a lot of homework. They Google everything and everybody. So I always tell people, do not underestimate investors, especially those from China, who are extremely proficient in doing research. And they like, and for obvious reasons, their three favorite cities are New York, LA, and San Francisco. Why? Because they have the largest Chinese populations in the country. Plus, they feel comfortable in those cities because they recognize them and they look at them as brand cities. Those are your what I call Tier 1 cities. The next cities that are maybe a step below would then be Las Vegas. There's a lot of EB5 capital going into Vegas. Why? Because the Chinese are very heavily. They like gambling, they like gaming, and they know Vegas. Vegas is obviously is a worldwide recognizable location. And then they're going into what I call the next level of cities, which would include Miami, Orlando, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, Philadelphia, Boston, Chicago, cities of that nature. But you're not seeing dollar-wise, you're seeing very little EB5 capital, very little, going into the midsection of the country. It's really the major cities. It's pretty well, to some degree, up and down the coastlines, with the exception of Dallas and Houston, because Texas is a very stable economy and is very desirable. And then you're starting to see more in the Midwest. Chicago is picking up. It was slow, but Chicago is getting more vital. And otherwise, it's really a lot of, you say, port towns, and that's just because the market gives preference to those locations.
I hear you. So I actually have a real-life client who I spoke to about this yesterday, and they are a developer in suburban Philadelphia. And from what I'm hearing is that they may be able to attract EB5 financing. That's not off the table.
No. Philadelphia has actually been a very good city for EB5. They've done the convention center. They did some of the work on the Comcast building. They just finished the Starwood's being built now, the Starwood Hotel.
Yep.
They're doing a large condominium project called 500 Walnut. And believe it or not, the government's using EB5 money. They're doing the Pennsylvania Turnpike. It's partially financed with EB5, and I think there's one or two other government-related projects in the state of Pennsylvania using EB5 funding. So Pennsylvania, of all states, has been very proactive in getting involved in EB5 capital for all the reasons we know.
What's the downtime? If I'm a developer and I'm just going to pick this guy in Pennsylvania only because he's a real live client of mine, and great guys, and they want to build. I'm just going to make it up. They're retail and office developers. They want to build a shopping center. How long does it take them to get the financing, the EB5 in place?
That's probably the biggest negative of the program. It's a process. The first process is you have to prepare all your documents to go to market. And the documents include economic reports because you have to show you create the jobs. You have to have a business plan to show feasibility. You need to do an offering document to raise capital, so that's a private placement memorandum to raise capital. You need to you need to engage a regional center to sponsor your program. You need to find a marketing agent to market your program. So this is a very involved, complex process that could easily take an upfront cost of $100,000 or $150,000 to effectuate. So there's an upfront cost factor to get into the program. Now, if you go to a bank and you do a sizable project, you may still have to spend a lot of money. The bank will require this report, that report, this feasibility appraisals. You'll have to, pay a lot of expenses to the bank. So it may not be that much more expensive, but the EB5 does require a certain amount of upfront costs to get to the marketplace. Then you have to wait to raise the money. The agents have to raise the money, get it into the account for the money to be lent to the project. So this whole process, we tell people, could easily take anywhere from 6 months to a year to effectuate, maybe even 18 months, depending upon the viability of the marketing agent and how quickly they can effectuate. A lot depends on the size of the project. So the larger projects tend to take longer to fund because they're so massive. But generally, it's not quick money. So it's ideal for transactions that are in the planning process, so they're waiting to get plan approval, where they won't put a shovel in the ground for 6 or 9 months. So the EB5 program starts raising capital during that time period to fund. A lot of times, too, EB5 capital comes in midstream. The developer may, what we call bridge finance or advance money to fund the project, and they get reimbursed from EB5 capital, or get a senior loan and then pay the senior loan down with EB5 capital as the project gets going. So the timing is flexible, but it's not immediate money. The money's not going to be in 1 or 2 months. It's going to take a minimum of probably 6 months to go through the process, bare minimum, because you have to go to the market, raise the money, have the money come over, have it put in escrow, have it released, and that takes time.
But a developer can do a bridge loan deal and sort of refi it out with EB5?
Yes, EB5 money can be used to pay off a bridge where the bridge was contemplated as part of the EB5 program. So in other words, if I'm going to use EB5 capital, I go to market, and you get a bridge loan to fund you in the interim, USCIS has acknowledged that that's acceptable, that the EB5 repays the bridge loan, and all the jobs that were created from the beginning count, because the theory is it's beneficial to our economy that the project start, and that even if the EB5 capital comes in later, it's better to start the project and then have EB5 capital take out some of the existing financing.
So it seems to me this is a really good tool that just about every developer needs to keep in their pocket.
Well, they should consider. I mean, we have some of the largest major developers in the country today are using EB5 capital. When you see it going mainstream, then you start saying to yourself, okay, this is working, because major developers that can afford a lot of different options are using EB5 for the reason it's cheaper financing. It's really simple. There's no other reason, but it's cheaper financing.
Gotcha. Ron, I got to do this again. I feel bad. I can go on forever, but bear with us. We got to take one more break. I apologize.
It's okay.
Everyone, stay tuned. We got a lot more to go.
Don't turn that dial. We'll be right back.
Did you invest in a non-liquid real estate partnership? Do you want and need liquidity? There's finally an answer. Quick Liquidity is a direct buyer of real estate minority interest and tenants in common investments across the country. To find out if we would buy your non-liquid investment, call us at 561-221-0881 or visit us at quickliquidity.com. That's quickliquidity.com.
Are you tired of dealing with invasive and unreliable banks or brokers who charge large amounts of upfront fees and never deliver on their promises? Gelt Financial Corporation, in business since 1989, offers a stated income mortgage loan for non-owner occupied residential and commercial real estate investors for purchases, refinances, and yes, cash out refinances. Call Gelt Financial at 561-221-0900. That's 561-221-0900. Our stated income loan program does not require tax returns. Due to the light documentation, we can offer quick closings and approvals usually within 1 day. This program is a 30-year term with no balloon payment, with loans amounts from $100,000 all the way up to $5 million. Call Gelt at 561-221-0900 or visit us at geltfinancial.com.
Does your company need financing to help with cash flow? Gelt Financial Corporation has been in business since 1989, knows the financing that businesses need to succeed in today's competitive environment. Gelt offers a wide array of programs such as accounts receivable, factoring, asset-based lines of credit, commercial real estate purchase and refinance financing, and bridge loans. Call us right now at 561-221-0900 to learn if you qualify. Gelt Financial understands that every business is in a unique situation which requires a unique solution. We pride ourselves in thinking outside the box to secure even the most difficult financing. Call us right now at 561-221-0900 or visit us at geltfinancial.com. That's geltfinancial.com.
Welcome back to It's Down to Business with Jack Miller.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us back. Ron, thanks for hanging in there. I appreciate it. Ron, what did I miss? We only have, unfortunately, the time of the hours marching by. What did I miss? What do you want to tell people who are listening to this? And what did I miss on this important topic?
Well, I think you've got the highlights. I think the message is this is not no longer a gimmick or something that you hear about in a loose sense. This is real business. EB5 Capital is funding over $2 billion of capital a year, creating thousands of jobs. It's by the way, the program is self-sufficient. It's not even a deficit program because it's fee-generated. So USCIS actually operates not at a loss. So this program costs the government no money. And so understand how pro-American this program is, because it brings foreign capital in the country, creates jobs, and needless to say, the foreign migrants who come here pay a lot of taxes because they pay tax on worldwide income. So it's really, you're bringing into our country a fairly self-sufficient element of people that have gone through a very massive screening through USCIS to make sure that they have no background issues that would create concerns. So I think that's important to understand. I think from those people who are looking for potential investors, investments, or financing, the EB-5 is an opportunity to look at if you meet the criteria of creating jobs, new jobs, and sustaining an investment for an extended period of time, as we discussed, probably at least 5 years, and again, not necessarily having to pay any significant rate of return or interest on the amount of funds that either borrowed or contributed. So, again, it's a very interesting model. It's being used by not just large developers, governments, agencies are using it, and it's, again, becoming fairly commonplace in the country. There's a lot of details we haven't discussed about the program, what I can get into, but, again, if you to look at examples around the country of major projects that are using EB-5 capital, it's quite surprising.
I know they're talking about, I think it comes up for appropriations in Congress, and they're talking about changing it slightly. And I believe the Homeland Security has chimed in on it. Do you think there'll be any major changes to the program?
Yeah, I think we don't. First of all, we don't know. I mean, obviously, we all agree that when you're dealing with Congress, it's unpredictable, especially involving immigration. And unfortunately, EB-5, is an immigration program, and as a result, gets tagged with immigration, and there are a lot of people that are anti-immigration or concerned about immigration. So that, in and of itself, has created a problem for not the renewal of the program. Program's been renewed 11 times, so it's been around quite a while, since 1990. So I think everybody's comfortable the program's going to get renewed because it adds too much benefit to the economy and the country. The issue is becoming that the government, some of the agencies of the government, some of the politicians that believe that the program needs to be tightened up as to certain requirements. In particular, they think the minimum investment of $500,000 for a TEA or targeted employment area type project with higher unemployment needs to be increased because there's been no increase since 1990. So if you read the recent letter from Secretary Johnson, the Secretary of Homeland Security, he's recommending that the amount of minimum investment be increased to take into account inflation. So it's projected that could bring the minimum investment up to $800,000 instead of $500,000. So that would be a major change in the industry. It may not, I understand that it's not going to kill the program. It's just going to be, it will eliminate certain investors that may invest $500,000 to immigrate, but not $800,000 to immigrate. So it will eliminate certain amount of investors, but not the majority of them. I understand the majority of people will continue the program, even if the minimum investment goes up. The other part of the modification to the program that's being negotiated is the definition of what qualifies for the $500,000 investment. The general $500,000 investment is categorized as a TEA location. It's either rural, meaning you're not in a metropolitan area, you're in an area of 20,000 people or less, or you're in a higher unemployment area. Higher unemployment means 150% of the national average or more. Now, you see projects going up all over Manhattan, L.A., San Francisco, and you say to yourself, I don't understand it. Those are pretty expensive areas. How could you possibly have TEA designations in those areas? And the response is because when the economists do their economic studies, they look at the effect of jobs and commerce, and they conclude that a lot of the jobs are coming from the higher unemployment areas, which is legitimate, and that's the position taken. Some of the people in the government and in Congress believe that there's been a lot of gerrymandering, and that's the word that's used by Secretary Johnson, that there's been gerrymandering, just like we do for voting, gerrymandering of census tracts that has created TEA designations that shouldn't apply. And if you don't get a TEA designation, then your minimum investment goes up to $1 million, not $500,000. And the problem with not being a TEA today in our EB-5 program is since virtually every program in the country is $500,000.
Gotcha.
If you have $1 million program, you can't compete, because if I'm an investor, why would I invest in a $1 million program and make no money when I can invest in a $500,000 program and make no money?
I got you, Ron. I don't mean to interrupt, but I got a minute left. Could you want to give out your contact information? Because really, if people are interested, they need to contact you. You are the superstar in this area.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. My name is Ronald Fieldstone. I do have a website, but my email is rrfieldstone, just like it sounds, at arnstein.com, ARNSTEIN.com. And if you look me up, my name, you'll see a website, and you can Google me, and you'll get information on me. But I've been very active in the industry for quite some time, and I thank you for the opportunity of being on your program.
I thank you. I'm going to be in touch in a day or so. I have a real-life client. I cannot thank you enough. On behalf of the listeners, I found this show very exciting, and it shows what a weirdo I am, that I find EB financing and this kind of stuff exciting. But thank you for your time. I know how busy you are, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Take care.
Folks, thanks for joining in today. We will see you next Thursday, and we have Reb Shlomo Bregman, and I'm super excited about it. Thanks for joining us, and also check us out on Facebook, Jack Miller Down to Business. Thanks, everyone, and have a great week.
We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to tune in next Thursday at 3 o'clock on 880 The Biz. If you want to send in your questions, comments, or ideas for shows during the week, please email jackmiller@geltfinancial.com.